And yells at Cloud. What's up, everybody? Are we back? Are we back? I don't know. The old Facebook hang. Looks like we made it. All right. Good to see you guys. Another round of awesomeness. We are kicking ass collectively in our agencies here in this community, and I think that's just amazing. And doing it in a way where we're getting freedom, we're getting life, we're getting more beach, we're getting less laptop, we're getting like systems and processes. This is the basis, by the way. It's not very sexy, but it's the basis of a real business. Wanted to do a quick announcement on that, by the way. For those of you guys who are in the group, you have seen for the first time ever, I have Big Daddy over here has launched a course, 15 years, and I've avoided it for a lot of different reasons, but a lot of you guys have asked, and I thought, okay, it's probably time. And we got some really cool stuff showing you guys how to run really kick-ass ads. I've also got my offer formula, which is the basis of everything we do in our agency, really is, and getting employees and delivering value for clients. It's like if you understand that offer making thing, like I swear, you'll never ever be broke again, ever. Because like you can always like make an offer and get it accepted and make sales and create monetary movement relatively easy and do it in a way where you're bringing real value to people, understanding what they want, who they are, those kind of things. So that's included in there. We also there's a medium package that has everything we do for phoneless acquisition, Loom videos, acquiring clients, all that kind of stuff, how we sell people, how we close. We got scripts, we got examples, so you can create your own. That's the most ultimate thing. And I'll tell you the lowest hanging fruit, if you guys already have calls already, is just to say to people who are almost booking calls but won't, like, hey, I know you're busy, man. You want to just watch a video? That's it. You'll close people over those. And then the third package we have is all for phoneless onboarding, getting people into your world, giving that wow welcome, setting them up so they stay a long time. We have all the SOPs and stuff, so you can just like copy and paste, plug it into your system, and you can have like wow welcomes. We actually have a couple of people who've messaged me saying they've already sent out their first like welcome packages and their clients are blown away. So I'm super stoked about that. Other than that, I'm going to be taking, by the way, I'm only going to be like kind of pumping on that a couple more days, and then we got some other stuff in the pipeline. We've got some Sean Clark from Go High Level, the training I've been putting off forever about the side door, about how we're getting 10-cent buyer leads and 4-cent buyer leads across a couple different platforms. That's coming out. So after that, we'll be jamming on that. But so excited for you guys and the cool shit that's coming and seeing the progress. Anyways, let's get into the good stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, Frankie Finn proudly brings you our weekly Q&A. All right, let's get into the real agency stuff. Kyle says, does anyone have any cold calling scripts for local businesses for either Facebook, Instagram, Google advertising, SEO, or website building? Kyle, there is one in the group here, my man. But before I do, I want to issue a word of caution because the way your question is framed, that is the wrong fucking business to be in. And I'm not saying that's what you're going to pitch to people, but if you do it in the way you ask the question, it leads the way to struggle mightily. And let me tell you why. Because all of the things you mentioned, Facebook, Instagram, Google, all those things are hammers, and nobody wakes up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat and says, what I really want, what I really need are some fucking Facebook ads. What I really need is a website and all those things. So if you're in the selling your hammer, your tool business, you're going to have a really, really hard time with it. So what I recommend is picking a niche and then figuring out an outcome that niche wants. I'll give you an example of this so you can wrap your head around this, okay? Christian in our mastermind, one of the things he was doing is reaching out to restaurants. And he was doing email marketing for them. And you know who wants email marketing? Nobody, because it's a fucking hammer, right? What they want is the outcome of email marketing. What he found out is restaurants, really, especially high-end restaurants, they like big birthday parties because often people will come with 20, 30, 40, 50 people. And they spend lots of money. They might spend $5,000 in a single night on a birthday, right? So it's a hidden high ticket sale. And so the script is less about do you need email marketing and more about like, do you guys have big birthday parties? Yes, I do. Are you interested in getting a few? Yes, I am. Well, let me tell you how we could get you big birthday parties. And it is about the outcome. So this is kind of an advanced thing. You'll notice The other part of like an outreach script or a cold calling script that works, I recommend listening to a guy. His name is Ari Gelper. And one of the things he told me is that what most salespeople do, and this is true whether they do it in email or cold calling, is they give away the fact that they got some commoditized shit they're selling just with the language they use. So like, for example, this is a typical sales call is they'll say, hey, my name's Frankie Finn. I'm calling from company XYZ, and the reason I'm calling today is because... And regardless of what I'm going to say next, you already know I'm a salesperson, and you already know that like I got some commoditized thing, because not like everybody on the phone introduces themselves that way. And what he suggested is mirroring the language of a customer. If you think about a customer when they cold call, they don't introduce themselves. They just go like, what time you guys open till? Do you guys have it in black? I want to know if you have one in black. And so what he suggested is just asking about issues that they want to resolve and outcomes they want. Like, hey, do you guys do big birthday parties? Yes, we do. Can you connect me to the person who's in charge of booking them? Because I have an idea for you guys on getting some big birthday parties. Okay, hold on. I'll transfer you over. And what most people do is they do the sales script, whether they're doing it in outreach or cold calling. They say, hello, my name's Frankie Finn. I'm calling from company XYZ. And the reason I'm calling today is because we do websites, blah, 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 blah. We offer hammers. Are you interested in a hammer? And that's how you struggle to sell a hammer. If you pick a niche and focus on an outcome, you can just be like, hey, who's in charge of birthday parties? So-and-so. Can I talk to him, please? All right. Hey, Joe, you guys do big birthday parties? Yes, we do. Okay, I had an idea for you to get some. Can I send you a little details on it? Yes, you can, right? Like, that's how you want to do cold calling. And it's almost so stupid simple that people have a hard time understanding that it works because it's so damn simple, right? But it talks about one of two things. Always, if you want to have a script that works, what's up, Leora? You want to talk about symptoms and specific problems they want to solve, or you want to talk about outcomes they want to achieve. And so in order to do that, you need a niche. But what you don't want to do is be like Mr. Generic everything, like we do websites, blah, 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 because you'll just have a really hard time. And whenever people say yes to the hammer as a hammer, you'll be severely underpaid for it. I'll give you an example of this, by the way, just so you can wrap your head around like how underpaid people are selling the hammer. I was looking on Fiverr for a cover design. Those of you guys who don't know, this book right here, I got designed on Fiverr. I shelled out the big $10 and spent $10 again the second time to get some changes. So I spent $20 getting my cover made. I saw a post the other day. It was from Anik Singhal, who's a well-known internet marketer. And he said, does anyone here know someone who's a designer who makes New York Times best-selling covers? Now, implied in there is a niche, okay? It's like New York Times best-selling authors is the niche. And the outcome they want is a best-selling book cover. I would be shocked if they aren't charging $10,000 a cover or more for that because the value of the outcome. But if you sell the hammer as a hammer, it's like, hey, I'll design something for you. $10, that's what you get. If you pick a niche and say, I do this for best-selling authors and I design best-selling covers, then you can probably charge 10 grand for the same thing. So that's the difference between having a niche and having an outcome versus just like, I sell hammers. You sell hammers, you get $10 for it. You pick a niche and an outcome, you can get 10 grand for the same kind of thing. So that's why I'm so adamant about that. And then if you do that, your script will flow out of there. You just reach out to New York Times best-selling authors and say, I had an idea for you for a best-selling cover. Are you interested? Anyways, enough about that. Group member, this one they wanted to post anonymously. Need help to understand how to identify the symptoms for the badass offer matrix. I'm starting an email marketing for e-commerce stores and agencies. I know the owners have almost constant cash flow problems and already high and rising acquisition costs with ads. I can partially help them with that, but there's no way to promise I'll fix your cash flow problems. So what kind of symptoms do I use if you experience cash flow problems? Seems vague. Same with the results. I can help you have a sales spike. I spent a few hours on Reddit and Quora, but didn't get anything more specific than that. Please help. By the way, bought El Chapo ads yesterday. Appreciate that, anonymous group member, even though I know who you are. I'm not going to say your name. I really like it. Good. By the way, for those of you guys who are on the inside, there's some really cool stuff. So this person is referring to the badass offer matrix, which is part of the El Chapo ads as one of the bonuses. And So this is the thing is the basis of all like high ticket selling starts out of a problem and a symptom they're trying to solve. And the biggest mistake people make with this is they're just not specific enough, is they're too vague. Like you mentioned, cash flow problems are too vague. So my question is, like, if you go deeper, where do those cash flow problems show up? Do they show up when they're running Facebook ads? Do they show up when they're buying inventory? Do they show up when they're looking at the end of the month of reports? Do they show up when they're hiring people? Chances are, if I had to make an educated guess, I don't know for sure, but it's probably showing up on the front end on the acquisition where they're like, they sell $1,000 worth of stuff, but after they pay the cost of goods and the cost of ads and everything, they either make nothing or even lose money in that acquisition process. And you can't really scale if your cash flow situation is upside down. Okay, so that's the first thing is you want to be specific about where that cash flow problem is showing up. You want to get to the point where you can finger point to an exact specific point in their reality where that's showing up. The second thing is, when we talk about the outcome side of the badass offer matrix, we don't have to... There's Cole. Dude, I love you, man. When we're talking about results, like sometimes we think that as marketers, we have to make these big, grandiose problems and show up as the like, I'm going to fix all your cash flow problems. Everything's going to be fucking great in your business. And I'm the hero. I'm going to scale you to millions of dollars. And for whatever reason, marketers think that like exaggerated promises, bigger and bigger, get better. But all you have to do is sell something that improves their situation. That's it. Okay? So what most people don't realize, okay, if you're an e-commerce store and your problem is cash flow, and what are most people selling? They're selling hammers. Hey, we can run Facebook ads, guaranteed 2x ROAS. We can do SEO for your store. We can get your reviews. We can run Google ads and shopping ads. But most of those things, by the way, if you have cash flow problems, most of those things sound like an expense. They don't sound like money. They sound like I have to pay out money first and then hopefully get a return later. So if you show up and say like, hey, I've got a way to bump your cash flow, like we could probably make 10, 20 sales from like a couple of gratitude emails. You're not promising the moon, but because their real issue is cash flow and you're saying, I'll work within the confines of your cash flow, that immediately becomes a more desirable offer. Example of this, by the way, and you can do this with anyone, by the way. Sam, who this El Chapo ads that you guys have seen this week is actually inspired by him. He came to me and said, like, hey, Frankie, how long have you been doing the mastermind? I said, like, I don't know, like 2.5 years. And he said, like, how many recordings are? I said, 1 a week for like 2 years, so like over 100. And he said, I bet you there's at least 10 little courses in there. I said, probably. He said, you ever thought about like organizing it into a course? And I said, yeah, but it's too much work with like 3 kids. I just don't have time to do it. And he said, well, if I organized it all, could we like go and sell it? And after we're successful, we can just, kind of do a split on that. And I said, absolutely. And that's basically what you want to offer to people is like, not like I'm going to be the hero and savior of all time of all your cash flow problems ever. But like, hey, I notice you guys have this cash flow problem. With my gratitude campaign, we could probably get a bump of like 5, 10, 20, sometimes even 100 sales. I'm happy to be paid like a percentage of the sales we make. And, we're not going to save the world in this one campaign, but we could probably move the needle a little bit. Would you be interested? That's where you want to get to with your offer, where you're addressing their real issue and you're being very realistic about what result or outcome. You're not over-promising like some grandiose bullshit that you can't fulfill on, and then you're showing up with like your new and exciting kind of way out. If you do that, shit's going to work. So what I would say is just go deeper into the like, where are the cash flow problems showing up? And if you don't know the answer, by the way, you can always just go into a group and ask. Go into a community of these people. Like if you go into a community of e-commerce store owners and say like, where does your, where do you experience most cash flow issues with scaling? Like they're going to tell you, like, you don't have to guess at this. So, that's where you want to do is just take it a level deeper. And then what you'll find is you got some cool stuff. I sent you a little private message about that. Anybody who like wants feedback on their offer, who's gone through the package, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to help you guys with that. Another anonymous group member, man. You guys are all either like I always assume when people are on Zoom and their cameras off, it's because they're naked. So you guys are like that, posting anonymously because you're up to some shady stuff. No, I'm just kidding. I understand, like, you don't always want everybody to know who you are and what your situation is. So, hey guys, so I've been thinking about starting a YouTube media agency where I get a script writer, a thumbnail designer, and a video editor. Basically, we'll be creating faceless YouTube channels for people and helping them monetize their channels. My problem now is finding people who actually need this service. How do I do that? Also, is it scalable? Okay, firstly, let me answer this question a little bit in reverse. Is it scalable? The answer always to is it scalable is it depends on the structure you create. The most unscalable structure in existence, by the way, is the one you create where you do a lot of custom work. I wrote about this in version 2.0 of the work. There are two different schools of thoughts for delivering value for clients. One of those is what I call custom, and I did this for many, many years. And one of those is called customization. Custom is when every solution is created from scratch. Client says, can you design a website? I create a new website from scratch. Client says, can you run Google AdWords? I create new ads from scratch. Client says, can you run Facebook ads? I create Facebook ads from scratch. You do that for like 10 clients for 10 different things in 10 different niches. You'll be overwhelmed and maxed out, and it won't be easy to hire people because like it's all custom work. So it like almost always takes longer to explain it. Customization is when you take like a narrow niche of people, like say dentist. I'm not saying you would deliver this for dentists, but just to wrap your head around it. And what works for one dentist works for a second dentist, works for a third dentist. So the only difference is when I do it for the second dentist and the third dentist, the first time through it's custom, but the second time I'm just doing little tweaks. I might change the dentist picture and his phone number and his brand colors, but for the most part it's the same shit that you're running again and again. So is it scalable means you got to have a niche and you got to have an outcome that niche is after. Because what you have described with YouTube and scripts and faceless stuff, all of that is a hammer, right? It's a cool hammer, by the way. I might add, it sounds exciting to me. But I'll tell you, I have people reach out to me with stuff like this on my YouTube channel and say, like, we can optimize it or we can repurpose your stuff. And all of that is cool. But the problem is it shows up as a replacement offer because I already have somebody doing that. So what I would focus on if I were you is step one is nail a niche of people who could most benefit from that you would actually want to do this for. Like, let's just say you choose online coaches. And then the second thing is they don't want a YouTube channel. They want the outcome of it. They don't want the hammer. They want the outcome of the hammer. And the outcome of the hammer, like if I was doing online coaches, is usually they want to sell their most expensive thing. As a general rule, people across any niche, doesn't matter, they want to sell their most expensive thing more often. So like, let's say you're dealing with a coach who has a $40,000 mastermind and a $3,000, I don't know, like 8-week program, and they have a $97 course. All things being equal, they want to sell the $40,000 mastermind. So I would go to coaches who are already selling that thing and are buying those kind of services and say, hey, we can create a nameless, faceless YouTube channel to help sell your $40,000 mastermind and enroll people into that. Would you be interested in that? And then what happens is the scripts you create for coach number 1 and all that can be kind of used almost verbatim for coach 2 and coach 3. So if you want to create a scalable structure, it comes down to pick a niche, figure out how to make it add-on, figure out who's buying those kind of things, and then pitch those people. As a general rule, you want to pitch people that are having success to a certain extent with their thing already and talk about expanding. Like, so if you're doing online coaches, I wouldn't reach out to coaches that are just getting started or just got a life coaching certification. I would reach out to coaches who have $50,000 to $200,000 a month programs and say, like, this adds on and complements what you're doing. If you do that, you'll talk to less people, but you'll be way more successful in selling it. And that's how I would approach that. I would find like the people who have some flow, contact them and say, I created this little add-on to help you sell your outcome. The whole thing runs on autopilot without you in the background. You're open to trying it. And what you'll find is you probably will be able to sell that like right out of the gates and scale it because you'll be doing the same thing over and over. It doesn't matter how many coaches you get. They all want to sell their expensive thing. Or it doesn't matter how many dentists you get. They all want to sell their implants or veneers or whatever, right? So if you focus on those fundamentals, you'll create like a scalable, and it sounds like a really cool hammer, by the way. It sounds like a really cool offer. So I would focus on that. Hetty says, what is the best response when the leads say, I'm not going to pay for a lead program? Now, Hetty, I know, just for those of you guys who don't know, you're working in real estate, and real estate is a tricky thing. Now, I want you to think about this, because the best way, firstly, there are two important things in handling objections. What most people do, by the way, with handling objections is they memorize rebuttal scripts. And that's like one level of it, and I'm not saying it doesn't work. I've used them for years, where you agree with the prospect and then you kind of like reframe it. So you say, hey, Mr. So-and-so, that's totally normal. I see why you would not be interested in paying for a lead program, but to tell you the truth, this is more than a lead program because of blah, blah, blah. But I think there's a better way of dealing with objections, and it is a twofold. One is the internal aspect of like reframing it to yourself, because you'll be much, much more powerful in dealing with it. And then the second is I look for how can I deal with that earlier in the sequence is. So the first thing I think about is you're not selling fucking leads. Business owners don't need or want more leads, especially real estate agents, because it's a big high ticket sale. It's often slow. Like agents, like sometimes somebody will inquire about real estate and be thinking about moving 6 months from now, right? Like that's a lot of follow up, and that's a lot of nurturing for the most part, which business owners suck at across the board. And so instead of like selling them leads, sell them outcomes. So to me, what is the outcome that a real estate agent wants? And we talked about this privately for those of you guys who don't know. What we talked about is what most agents hate is they're on standby, answering their phone, getting texts, and having to respond to people. And most of them are tire kickers, and they can't be even out to dinner without checking their phone for 5 minutes. And what they found is if they deal with investors, for the most part, leave them the fuck alone. They can make the deal based on the spreadsheet and a few photos. They don't need to have walkthroughs and 8,000 text messages. So this is my way of saying internalize the fact that you're selling the outcome. In your case, I'm going to help you get investors. Fuck leads. I'm going to bring you deals. Right? That's the first internal shift, is like I'm not selling you leads. Right? Where did you get the impression that I was selling you? The more you have that inside of you, the stronger you'll be in whatever kind of rebuttal kind of situation. But the second more important thing to do is to take that feedback, hear it, and then ask yourself this magic question: how can I deal with it earlier in the sequence? And we had a little private talk, but I think this would benefit other people who are listening to this. And what I was thinking about, like, so I used to, by the way, everybody thinks like, when you have success with this, like, you got the Midas touch or whatever. The first 40 or 50 lawyers I talked to, by the way, all liked me, and we had nice, good sales calls, but didn't buy shit from me, right? So imagine like doing 50 sales calls in a row and not selling a single person. And I got the same objection over and over and over, and it was, this sounds really cool, Frankie. Can I go talk to a few lawyers you've worked with? Now, when you're selling this for the first time, there's nobody. So okay, blah, blah, blah. I'll get back to you on that. And of course, I would lose every deal. What most people try and do is handle the rebuttal on the spot and say, well, Mr. Lawyer, I hear that you want to talk to so-and-so, but, and then they try and reframe it. But I realized it's much better earlier in the sequence. So one of the things I started doing is I was having all these calls that were unsuccessful, and I started getting testimonials for the call itself. I would say, hey, like, Larry, I know you didn't want to buy anything today, but can you just can I hit record here and you just, share the fact that you got some value out of this call for anybody else who's interested in this call? I did that like 10, 12 times in a row, and I got 10, 12 lawyer recordings who all said, hey, this call is awesome. And so what I did then is I took all of those and I put it on a thank you page, so that right after somebody booked, they got forwarded to a page where they could see other lawyers, which was the very thing they were asking about. And then what ended up happening is I would get on calls with some of these guys, and early in the sequence, I would say, hey, Evans, you remind me of so-and-so from Chicago who had like the same kind of divorce practice as you, and they were dealing with the same kind of issues. And without saying that was my client or anything like that, it implied other lawyers have done this. And those two things, what happened is they stopped asking at the end, hey, can we talk to other lawyers? Because they assumed other lawyers had done this. And instead, I just got credit cards. So that's a long-winded answer to say two things is internalize the fact that you're not selling leads. You're selling outcomes. High-value outcomes, I might add. And then the second thing is always take objections and then ask yourself, how can I address this even before it comes up? Because you're far more believable, right? Like if you ask somebody for a credit card and then they say no, and then there's like a rebuttal, they don't believe you nearly as much as if you address that before. So almost always like the same people in your niche are going to have the same objections over and over and over. So I take that and I address it earlier in the sequence. And then what ends up happening is it just doesn't come up. And you'll just like get the outcome you want, which is in this case sales and clients and things like that. So that's my advice for that. I hope that's helpful, my man. Mike says, do you require prepayment? I've been doing post-payment with my local clients with no troubles. Typically, when engaging in a company I have no previous relationship with, I require 50% upfront and 50% after the work is completed. I've just accepted a new client and working out payment terms. I'd be comfortable with net 30 terms, but I'm curious what others are doing. Thanks for your time. Mike, this is a very much it depends answer. So I'll tell you the first reason why most of us in this world do retainers, and it's I know everybody will tell you that like you'll get screwed on payments, and that probably is true, but there's actually a bigger reason to be paid up front instead of being paid net 30 terms. And the reason is because you don't want to be the fucking bank for your clients. Because if you intend to scale your machine, cash flow is going to be the biggest enemy of scale. So what happens is like when you're like a single solopreneur, if you run ads and acquire a client, like let's say you spend $1,000 in ads and you sell a $2,000 a month service, then you'll make $1,000 a month, month one from client, just from acquiring them with ads. But what happens when you start scaling and you introduce things like Facebook people, and now you have employees who expect to be paid on the delivery, and all of a sudden your machine gets more expensive? What ends up happening is it might cost you $3,000 to make a $2,000 sale, and you might make the money back on month 2 or month 3 or month 4 or things like that. But what ends up happening is if you're net 30, then all of a sudden you got more things to pay for up front. So the biggest reason why you don't want to do net 30 is because it'll fuck with all your scale if you intend to scale. Now, having said that, it sounds like you're doing website design or web design. It's very normal to take 50% up front and 50% when it's completed. I don't necessarily have any problem with that, like if you're doing that. But don't become the bank for clients, because you will get screwed out of some deals. And bigger than that is if you intend to scale, you're just going to encounter problems. And most clients, by the way, that you're giving net 30 terms to would happily pay you up front. Like 9 out of 10 of those people would just pay you up front if you just asked for it up front. If you just make it normal and say, okay, here's what we need to get started, send the payment here, they'll do it. Having said that, there are times where I like to be paid second, and they are on revenue share deals. And I choose my revenue share deals very, very, very carefully. What most people think when I say revenue share deals is like basically like begging any dentist, please, Mr. Dentist, come work with me and you can pay me second. And what I do is I identify the major players in an industry, the influencers, the movers, the shakers. And it's usually with those people I offer net, like pay me second kind of deal. So an example of this, I follow a guy named Justin Brook. And Justin was saying that he did this for Russell Brunson in the internet marketing space. Like, hey, let me run Facebook ads for you. I'm going to crush it with your Facebook ads, and you can pay me second after I've sold your ClickFunnels and your stuff like that. That's a very strategic move, right? Like, he's not just begging any person to work with him. He's choosing a high-value influencer. And the reason you do that is because even if they never paid you $1, just think about how much money he would make saying, I'm Russell Brunson's personal Facebook ads guy, and here's some results we've gotten for him. Immediately he's going to get clients out of that. So if you want to be paid second, I don't do this with random clients. I only do this with like movers and shakers in my industry, and it's usually I'm only being paid like 7 days later. Like I don't ask them to like pay me months, years, those kind of things later. It's just a short time later. So I hope that's helpful, Mike. Nick says, anyone ever tried changing or charging or taking deposits for sales call strategy session. The amount of times they don't show up or message you right before the meeting is supposed to start and tell you something came up is astounding. No matter how many times you communicate with them before then and even receive their confirmation that they'll be there, they don't show up. You think as fellow business owners they'd respect your time a bit more. Nick, I'm going to give you a shameless plug as to my first answer, which is you just answered one of the many reasons we go phoneless. I'll tell you one of the things people don't think about. Okay, when somebody reaches out to you and they schedule a thing and say, I'm interested in that, when do you think they're most interested in that? And the answer is right fucking then, right? Not like it's almost anticlimactic, especially like in my market, like busy professional services. Sometimes they need to book the call 3 weeks out. You know what happens in 3 weeks? They forget who you are, what it was about, why they even wanted it, and they go like, okay, I see this on my calendar. Who the fuck are you again, and what is this about? And you can feel that energy because the lead has cooled off in those 3 weeks. So one of the reasons we've gone phoneless is because it's so fucking easy to just say, okay, here's a video, let me know. And they can get the information they want right away. So that's my way of saying at the in our package right now, we got the Cali Cartel level. That has all our phoneless stuff. You may want to check that out. Now, having said that, Nick, there are some things we've done to get appointments to show up. And I'll tell you 3 things that worked well for us. One of those is like whatever software you're using that has reminders, like Calendly or Acuity or OneSub or any of these tools or Go High Level or whatever you're using, is have a bunch of reminders. So like send them an email an hour before, 15 minutes before, day before, etc. Let them know. That's probably the least effective thing we're doing, but it's the bare minimum of what you should be doing. Thing number 2 we did, and this is equally important, is begin to pre-sell them before the phone call. And the way we've done this is, you can do this one of 2 ways, is to have a really cool thank you page that shows social proof, testimonials, examples of your work, whatever the best proof elements you have, and right after they book the call, send them to that page because it will solidify their decision and it'll start beginning the pre-selling the idea of working with you. You can also like incorporate an email series and send like a testimonial, a case study, something before those calls. I've experimented with that. But by far, thing number 3 is a thing we've done. It took us, by the way, in one of our niches a couple years ago, this was obviously when we still did sales calls, I was having 50% show up rates for phone calls. It was driving me fucking crazy because you know how you like wait 5 or 10 minutes because sometimes people are late, they got a call, whatever, and I would have these calls booked and like half the time they didn't fucking show up. Friend of mine recommended this. I didn't create it. We have a copy of this in the mastermind. If you're interested, guys, I'll just send you it for free. But what we did is we created a pre-recorded voicemail. We used a tool called Slide Broadcast. You can also use Go High Level to do this. And what would happen is after somebody booked a call, about 10 minutes later, they would get a ring and it would go automatically to their voicemail. And it would sound something like this. I forget what we said exactly in the recording. But it'd be like, hey, it's Frankie here. And I just saw you booked a call with us. Really, really excited to connect with you. I just want to give you a little heads up about what we're going to go over on here. It's about these 3 things and how we're going to help you this way. And then at the end of it, if you're interested in working together, we can talk about that. If you're not, I'll just leave that part out. Either way, you're going to get some value out of it. And anyways, I just wanted to let you know I'm really looking forward to seeing you and talking together. It was pre-recorded, right? I didn't use the person's name so I could send the same voicemail to everybody. But that happened automatically with technology. And I'll tell you what happens. The minute they get a voicemail and think you've actually called them, it's a lot harder to flake on a real person than it is to flake on like just a random internet dude on a calendar that you have never met and you have no relationship with and they're not a real person. So when we did that, we found our show up rates went from like 50% to like 95%. And the 5% who didn't show probably did you a favor. So if you're interested in that, just send me a message and I'll send you a copy of that voice message and thank you page, and you can incorporate those into your own stuff. Landy says, looking for some help about the advantages and successes you've experienced using your industry associations and partnerships. I was wondering what types of successes you've experienced with the associations other than getting access to their email list and attending their trade shows and conferences. Our niche is functional medicine doctors, and the associations don't readily release their email list, so I'm just wondering as to whether or not there have been other tactics or approaches that you found to be successful. I don't necessarily know about functional medicine, Landy, but I wanted to give you a little feedback on this because this is like really, really key. I've done a lot with some of the different lawyer industry associations over the years, and they're a gold mine, by the way, because all the top players are part of associations. They have to be. Most associations, regardless of niche, like people have to go for some kind of like continued education, usually about the logistics of the business itself, as well as sometimes like marketing and actually like growing teams. And so the reason I tell you this is because it helps to understand what the associations are missing. Is they have an association meeting sometimes like once a month, sometimes like once a year, sometimes like once a week. Sometimes they're putting shit tons of these meetings on. And it's a constant battle for them to come up with new, useful, valuable things to give to their people. So the most valuable thing you can do, I would say 8 times out of 10, is figure out how to take what you do and turn it into a training. And show up with them and say, like, I have this new valuable thing that your people need, and I'm going to train them and give them all the details for free. And the way you do that, like I have somebody in a mastermind, friend of mine who did this perfectly, is what they did is they created a bunch of, their package was about creating reviews for people.